So Matt, I'm introducing Matt Hirschland. Matt's the comms director here at UCAR. He has a PhD in political science from CU. He worked for a while at something called Business for Social Responsibility, then at Kinsey, and maybe before that, maybe after that, ran an ice cream shop in Cortez, New Mexico. Right now, on the side. He has 3 kids, grew up in Oregon, once spent $85 on sushi on the Champs-Élysées. I had birthday with him on my dinner, I had dinner with him on my birthday in New Orleans.
You didn't tell me it's your birthday.
Well, I am now. Anyway, Matt.
I'm doing that right after this. So, okay, guys. So I'll tell you a story about a boy, and that boy is me, living the dream in Belgium not many years ago. In fact, 2007 and 2008. And I was working for a big consulting company. And these were the trends that we were seeing going on. Huge growth around the world, and we were serving companies. And then something strange happened in the fall of 2008 called the financial crisis. Here's a chart of kind of what it looked like. It's become called the Great Moderation. And I think I don't have to tell you the stories about kind of the dislocation that this caused. And of course, the clients, the big companies, the governments that we were serving at the time began asking a whole bunch of questions, like, what just happened? What happens next? What happened to all this great growth that you were promising us? What will the future of my work, my company look like? What's the new normal was a big question, and how do I prepare for it? And then ultimately, what forces will shape the next decade? So we spun up at being a consulting firm to answer these questions. And we did quite a bit of heavy lifting and extensive research and came up with what we called the 5 forces, or the crucibles of change and innovation, that helped us begin to talk with the firms, the governments that we were serving. And I want to run you through what these are today, because I think they have profound implications for us 4 years after that fact. So the first crucible, the first force, is this great rebalancing. And I don't have to tell you this, and we're seeing it right before our eyes. If you've been to China 20 years ago, and if you've been to China now, it's a stunning, stunning development. Something like 8 Manhattans are being built every 10 years in China. It's stunning. You have to see it with your own eyes. Moreover, world population is becoming more urban. Right? These are really big, profound thematic changes. And moreover, labor productivity growth, as you can see, is a huge separation between what's happening in the developed world, the OECD countries, and the rest of the world. The next kind of force, if you will, is what we've called the global imperative. And again, it plays off that last bit. And these are very data intensive, so bear with me. But a long time ago, 1970s, not all that long ago, I was a kid, a lot of the productivity in the US came from people entering the workforce, women in particular. And that's completely changed. We don't have that kind of productivity, especially in the developed world, and people are asking questions about where it comes from. And then if you break out kind of where this growth will ultimately come from, the good news, and I put it in red, is that we occupy a space that has great potential to actually answer this question of where the jobs will come from, but also their productivity. The next force is this notion of a global grid, right? We all know the world's connected. It's colored by the work we do, and our science taps into that. Here's just a representation of how trade flows have changed just over the last 2 or 3 decades. It's quite stunning. And then if you kind of drill down into what this hyperconnectivity actually means or looks like, so we can talk about capital. I think the one for us is the amount of scholarship that's coming not just from the US. And we can quibble about the quality of scholarship elsewhere, and I think there's some real concerns. But the reality is China's quickly catching up, India and others as well. So we not necessarily will be the center of that universe. The next force is this pricing the planet. I think we know we're in a change of a huge shift away from carbon. But that said, it's still going to take some time. This is just an idea of where generation comes from and will likely. The good news part of this story is, though, that we're about to hit a sweet spot in terms of when green actually becomes lucrative. And this blue kind of represents a price point for oil in particular about, and these are all different scenario loops, about where it actually makes sense to become even more green than we are now. So there is hope. The final force that I want to speed through here is the fact that we call it the market state, but that governments are changing, and the roles of governments are changing. They're faced with some huge, huge challenges. Fiscal burdens, productivity, the public sector is wildly unproductive vis-a-vis its private sector partners. And I won't even get to the rest of them. But the bottom line is government is struggling mightily and is angry with the private sector and is really asking questions about how do we continue to cope. So what is really the big question. We're sitting here at UCAR and NCAR, and these are great to talk about, but what does this really mean for us in terms of the work we do and some of the changes that we may need to think about making? So I think one of the things, just the low-hanging fruit, is this notion that we have to get the context right. We have to understand these changes and their impacts on us, and I think many of us live that every day. We have to ultimately play to our strengths, which means understanding what those strengths are. And then the last one, which kind of just disappeared off the chart, which means we have to have a strategy. We have to really take all those things, push them together, and then execute extraordinarily well in this new context. So thank you very much.